Welcome to Principles of Management. This lecture is covering Chapter 8, Global Management. The learning outcomes include discuss the impact of global business and the trade rules and agreements that govern it, explain why companies choose to standardize or adapt their business procedures, explain the different ways that companies can organize to do business globally, outline the steps for finding favorable business climate, discuss the importance of identifying and adapting to cultural differences, and explain how to successfully prepare workers for international assignments. Business is the buying and selling of goods or services. Global business is the buying and selling of goods or services by people from different countries. Multinational corporations or corporations that own businesses in two or more countries. Another impact on global business is direct foreign investment occurs when a company builds a new business or buys an existing business in a foreign country. Historically, governments have actively used trade barriers to make it more expensive or difficult, or sometimes even impossible, for consumers to buy or consume imported goods. Governments have used two general kinds of trade barriers, tariffs and non-tariff barriers. A tariff is a direct tax on imported goods. Tariffs increase the cost of imported goods relative to those of domestic goods. Non-tariff barriers are non-tax methods of increasing the cost or reducing the volume of imported goods. There are 5 types of non-tariff barriers: quotas, voluntary export restraints, government import standards, government subsidies, and custom valuation or classifications. Subsidies are government loans, grants, and tax deferments given to domestic companies to protect them from foreign competition. Custom classifications are a classification assigned to imported products by government officials that affects the size of the tariff and the imposition of imported quotas. During the 1990s, the regulations governing global trade was transformed. The most significant change was 124 countries agreed to adopt the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades. GATT was replaced by the World Trade Organization. Significant changes were made under GATT and the World Trade Organization. Tariffs were cut by 40% on average worldwide by 2005. Tariffs were eliminated in 10 specific industries: beer, alcohol, construction equipment, farm machinery, furniture, medical equipment, paper, pharmaceuticals, steel, and toys. Stricter limits were put on government subsidies. There was protection of intellectual property, and in 2017, the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement, which simplifies the standardized customs procedures around the world, went into effect. Trade disputes between countries are now fully settled by the WTO's appellate body. Trade barriers have reduced by the creation of regional trade zones, or zones in which tariffs and non-tariff barriers are reduced or eliminated for countries within a trading zone. Maastricht's Treaty of Europe is a regional trade agreement among most European countries. The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement is a regional trade agreement among the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Dominican Republic-Central America Free Trade Agreement is a regional trade agreement among Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and the U.S. Southern Common Market is a regional trade agreement among the primary countries of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, with associated countries of Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Guyana, Peru, and Suriname. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations is a regional trade agreement about Brunei Darussalam, Colombia, Indonesia, Lao PDR, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. The Asia Pacific Economic Corporation is a regional trade agreement among Australia, Canada, Chile, the People's Republic of China, Hong Kong, Japan, Mexico, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Peru, Russia, South Korea, Taiwan, and the U.S. All the members of the ASEAN except Cambodia, Laos, PDR, and Myanmar. The Tripartite Free Agreement is a regional trade agreement among 25 African countries, including Botswana, Ethiopia, South Africa, Sudan, Zimbabwe. The free trade agreement increases choices, competition, and purchasing power. The U.S. marketplace is the second most competitive in the world. Although some U.S. industries, such as textiles, have been heavily protected by foreign competition, by trade barriers, for the most part, American consumers and businesses have plentiful choices among American-made and foreign-made products. For consumers, free trade agreements increase choices, competition, and purchasing power. For managers, free trade agreements create a new business opportunities, but they also intensify competition. Global consistency means that a multinational company with offices, manufacturing plants, and distribution facilities in different countries uses the same rules, guidelines, policies, and procedures to run all of those offices, plants, and facilities. Managers at company headquarters value global consistency because it simplifies decisions. If companies lean too much towards global consistency, they run the risk of using management procedures poorly suited to particular countries' market, cultures, and employees. By contrast, a company following policy of local adaptation modifies its standard operating procedures to adapt to differences in foreign countries, governments, and regulatory agencies. Local adaptation is typically preferred by local managers who are charged with making the international business successful in their country. If companies focus too much on local adaptation, they run the risk of losing the cost of effectiveness and productivity that results from using the standardized rules and procedures throughout the world. Historically, companies have generally followed the phase of model of globalization in which a company makes the transition from domestic company to global company in the following sequential phases: exporting, cooperative contracts, strategic alliances, and wholly owned affiliates. Some companies do not follow the phase model of globalization, skipping phases or becoming new ventures. When companies produce products in their home countries and sell these products to customers in foreign countries, they are exporting. Exporting has advantages. It makes the company less dependent on sales in its home market. It provides a greater degree of control over research, design, and production decisions. Exporting has disadvantages. The primary disadvantage is that many exported goods are subjected to tariffs and non-tariff barriers that can substantially increase their final cost to consumers. Transportation costs can significantly increase the price of exported products. Exporters depend on foreign importers for product distribution. When organizations want to expand its businesses globally without making a large financial commitment to do so, it may sign a cooperative contract with a foreign business owner who pays the company a fee for the rights to conduct that business in his or her country. There are two kinds of cooperative contracts. Under a licensing agreement, a domestic company, the licensor, receives a royalty payment for allowing another company, the licensee, to produce its product, sell its service, or use its brand in a particular foreign market. A franchise is a collection of networked firms in which the manufacturer or marketer of a product or service, the franchisor, license the entire business to another person or organization, which is called the franchisee. Companies forming a strategic alliance combine key resources, cost, risk, and technology and people. The most common strategic alliance is a joint venture, which can help companies avoid tariffs and non-tariff barriers to entry. Companies participating in a joint venture bear only part of the cost and the risk of the business. Most share profits as well as costs and risk, and are often challenging because multiple cultures are involved. Approximately one-third of multinational companies enter the foreign markets through wholly owned affiliates. Wholly owned affiliates are 100% owned by their parent company. As companies went global in the past, they usually followed the phase model of globalization. Now global and new ventures can be founded with an active global strategy. Companies try to find countries or regions with promising business climates. The most important factor in an attractive business climate is access to a growing market. Two factors help companies determine the growth potential of foreign markets: purchasing power, the relative cost of a standard set of goods and services in different countries, and the foreign competitors. Companies do not have to establish an office or manufacturing location in each country they enter. Rather than focus on cost alone, companies should consider both qualitative and quantitative factors. Qualitative factors include workforce quality and company strategy, and quantitative factors include kind of facility being built, tariffs and non-tariff barriers, exchange rates, transportation, and labor costs. When conducting global businesses, companies should attempt to identify two types of political risks. Political uncertainty is associated with the risk of major change in political regimes that can result from war, revolution, death of political leaders, social unrest, or other influential events. Policy uncertainty refers to the risk associated with changes in laws and government policies that directly affect the way foreign companies conduct business. There are several strategies that can be used to minimize or adapt to political risk inherent in global business. An avoidance strategy is used when the political risk associated with the foreign country or regions are viewed as too great. Control is an active strategy to prevent or reduce political risk. Cooperation involves using joint ventures and collaborative contracts such as franchising and licensing. National culture is the set of shared values and beliefs that affects the perceptions, decisions, and behaviors of the people from a particular country. Consistent cultural dimensions that exist across countries include power distance, which is the individual's perception of power distribution; individualism, the degree of belief of self-sufficiency; masculinity or femininity, assertive versus nurturing cultures; uncertainty avoidance, comfort levels with the unpredictable or unstructured; short-term or long-term orientations, preferences for deferred or immediate gratification; indulgence versus restraint is the strictness of the social norms. The first step in dealing with culture is to recognize that there are meaningful differences. Professor Gert Ofsted research shows that there are 6 consistent cultural dimensions across countries. Cultural differences affect perception, understanding, and behavior. After becoming aware of cultural differences, the second step is deciding how to adapt your company to those differences. Expatriates who receive pre-departure language and cross-cultural training make faster adjustments to foreign countries and perform better on their international assignments. There are 3 methods that can be used to prepare workers for international assignments: documentary training, cultural simulations, and field experience. Evidence clearly shows that how well an expat spouse and family adjust to foreign culture is the most important factor in determining the success or failure of the international assignment. A number of companies have found that adaptability screening and intercultural training for families can lend more successful overseas adjustments. In addition to helping families prepare for the cultural differences they will encounter, language and cross-cultural training can help reduce uncertainty about how to act and decrease misunderstandings between the expats and their families and locals. As always, thank you so much for listening to this lecture. If you do have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out.